The lukewarm coffee tasted like regret and instant granules, a fitting beverage for the occasion. Marcus stared at the chipped, world's okayest artist mug, a gift from Tiffany back when she still found his struggling artist persona charming, rather than a liability. Now she was sitting opposite him in their cramped, shared apartment soon to be his cramped, lonely apartment looking like a freshly minted goddess of disappointment. Marcus, it's just not working, Tiffany said, her voice a carefully modulated blend of sympathy and finality. She'd clearly rehearsed this. Her new Chanel handbag, a recent acquisition he definitely hadn't paid for, sat on the table between them like a glossy, leather-bound declaration of independence. Not working? Marcus echoed, trying to keep the tremor out of his voice. Tiff, we've been together for 3 years. We built this IKEA futon together. That's gotta count for something. She sighed, a delicate exhalation that probably smelled of expensive perfume. It's not about the futon, Marcus. It's about ambition, drive. You are comfortable. She said comfortable, like it was a communicable disease. I need someone who's going places. Someone stable. Stable? I haven't missed rent once. He protested, conveniently forgetting the time he'd paid it. 3 weeks late with money borrowed from his perpetually worried mother. Chad is a junior partner at his law firm, Tiffany said, as if that explained everything. Chad, of course. Chadwick Chad Worthington III, a man whose jawline could cut glass, and whose trust fund was probably larger than the GDP of a small nation. Marcus had seen him lurking on Tiffany's Instagram, all gleaming teeth and boat shoes. He has a plan, Marcus. A 5-year plan. A 10-year plan. Does his plan involve color-coding his sock drawer? Because I can do that. I am an artist, you know, good with colors. He tried a weak smile. It didn't land. This isn't a joke. Her eyes, once warm and full of affection when they looked at his clumsy sketches, were now cool and appraising. I am moving out this weekend? Chad's helping. Of course Chad was helping. Probably with a team of professionally trained movers who wouldn't scuff the rented U-Haul. The rest was a blur of carefully chosen platitudes. It's not you. It's me. It was definitely him. Or rather, his lack of a 7-figure bank account. We can still be friends. Unlikely unless Chad needed someone to fetch his dry cleaning. An hour later, she was gone, taking her half of the meager possessions and all the good snacks. The silence in the apartment was deafening, broken only by the drip 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 of the leaky faucet he'd been meaning to fix for 6 months. He slumped onto the saggy couch, the world's okayest artist, mug still in his hand. The coffee was cold now, bitter. He idly scrolled through crypto Twitter on his aging laptop, a masochistic habit he developed. Tweets about bored apes selling for millions, pixelated punks becoming status symbols, and something called Shiba Inu coin, making teenagers richer than him. It was all so absurd. Art to him was about skill, emotion, expression. This NFT stuff, it felt like a giant digital inside joke that everyone but him was cashing in on. Screw it, he muttered, a reckless, bitter energy bubbling up. If this is what the world wants, I'll give it to him. He opened his basic drawing software, his Wacom tablet, a birthday gift from his parents a few years ago, lay dusty in the corner. He grabbed it, blew off the dust, and with a few angry, jerky movements, sketched the stupidest thing he could think of, a single crudely drawn tear falling from a badly rendered stick figure eye. He titled it, Single Tear of a Soon to be Ex-Millionaire? Not really. I am broke AF. For good measure, he added a tiny, almost invisible, pixelated pigeon pooping in the corner. He called the whole collection Cryptocrap. He minted it as an NFT on a cheap, obscure platform, setting the price at a ludicrous 0.001 ETH, about $3, just to cover the gas fees he barely understood. There, he said to the empty room, my contribution to the downfall of art. Eat your heart out, Chad. He slammed the laptop shut, and utterly drained, fell into a fitful sleep on the couch, dreaming of Tiffany laughing from the deck of a yacht, Chad steering them towards a horizon made of gold bars. The next morning, Marcus woke up with a crick in his neck, and the taste of stale despair in his mouth. He fumbled for his phone, squinting at the notifications, a few spam emails, a reminder to pay his overdue internet bill, and an unusual number of alerts from his crypto wallet app and the NFT platform. Probably just confirmation emails, he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. He opened the NFT platform app first. Congratulations, your NFT single tear of a soon-to-be ex-millionaire. Not really. I am broke AF has been sold. Huh? Someone actually bought that piece of garbage for $3. He chuckled mirthlessly. Sucker. Then he saw the sale price. It was an 0.001 E. His eyes widened. He blinked. He rubbed them again. The number didn't change. It read 1337 ETH. His brain, still foggy with sleep and residual misery, struggled to process this. He quickly Googled the current price of Ethereum. 1 ETH was trading at around $3,140. He did the math. Once, twice, 3 times, his fingers fumbling on his phone's calculator. 1337 ETH x $3,140 equals $4,198,180. $4,198,180. $180 US. Number nana. This is a glitch, a typo, a practical joke by the universe. He scrambled for his laptop, hands shaking, and logged into the NFT platform. The sale was there. The transaction was confirmed on the blockchain. He logged into his crypto wallet. The ETH was there. Well, most of it after platform fees. Still, an amount of Ethereum that translated to. He refreshed the page. The dollar equivalent shimmered before his eyes. $4,201,057.32. The price of ETH had ticked up slightly. Marcus felt a strange tingling sensation, like his entire nervous system was rebooting. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer in his peripheral vision, like heat haze on a summer road, coalesced for a nanosecond into something that looked suspiciously like a minimalist, translucent pop-up window in the air. It vanished before he could fully register it, leaving behind a lingering feeling of, and a single phantom chime in his mind, clean and pure, like a struck tuning fork. He stared at the screen, then at his hands, then back at the screen. $4.2 million, he whispered, for a drawing of a stickman crying with pigeon poop. His phone started buzzing incessantly. Twitter notifications, Discord pings, unknown numbers calling. He glanced at Twitter. His CryptoCrap NFT was trending. Number single-tier millionaire, number WTF NFT, number pigeon poop prophecy. Art blogs were exploding. Crypto news sites were running headlines. Mysterious artist, Bro Keefe sells parody NFT for $4.2 million in overnight sensation. Someone had screenshotted his artist profile, which basically said, Marcus G. likes pizza. Pretty sure NFTs are dumb. That was now being hailed as a powerful statement on the neo-digital artifice. What? The actual hill? He stumbled to the kitchen, poured himself a glass of water with a trembling hand, and downed it in one gulp. The leaky faucet dripped, a counterpoint to the frantic thumping of his heart. $4.2 million from a joke. A bitter, angry joke. He needed to understand. He opened his drawing software again. His hand, still shaking, hovered over the tablet. What should he draw? Another piece of CryptoCrap, or something else? He thought of Tiffany, her dismissive words. You are comfortable. He thought of Chad's smug, successful face. A surge of defiant energy, mixed with utter bewilderment, coursed through him. He drew a potato. A simple, lumpy, brown potato. He didn't even try to make it look good. He named it Existential Spud. He minted it, setting the price at 1 ETH, just to see. He didn't expect anything. This was a test. Surely lightning couldn't strike twice. He posted the link on his now exploding Twitter feed with the caption, feeling starchy. Within 60 seconds a notification popped up. Congratulations. Your NFT Existential Spud has been sold for 10 ETH, $31,000, for a badly drawn potato. Marcus leaned back in his chair, a hysterical laugh bubbling up. It wasn't just the single tear. It was him. Anything he drew. The realization hit him with the force of a cartoon anvil. The faint shimmer in the air? The phantom chime? A system? Was this some kind of bizarre real-life cheat code? His dilapidated apartment suddenly felt suffocatingly small. The chipped mug, the saggy couch, the ghosts of Tiffany's pronouncements, they all belonged to a life that had, in the span of a few hours, become laughably obsolete. His phone rang again. An unknown number from a New York area code. He hesitantly answered. Mr. Bro Keefe? This is Bartholomew Cubbins IV from Sotheby's Digital Art Division. Marcus dropped the phone. Sotheby's? He picked it back up, his mind reeling. We are incredibly intrigued by your unique artistic vision. Your commentary on the ephemeral nature of value in the digital age is frankly groundbreaking. We'd love to discuss a potential consignment. Groundbreaking. He'd drawn a crying stickman and a potato. This was insane. Utterly, beautifully, terrifyingly insane. Marcus looked around his tiny, dingy living room. Then he looked at his crypto wallet balance, which was now comfortably over $4.2 million. A slow grin spread across his face. Okay, universe, he muttered. Let's dance. His first act as a multimillionaire, after muting his phone, was to order the most expensive pizza on Domino's menu, with every conceivable topping, and a side of those fancy chocolate lava cakes. He ate it sitting on the floor because his couch suddenly felt too pathetic for a man of his newfound, accidental stature. The next few days were a blur. He hired a lawyer specializing in crypto and necessity. He quickly realized as offers and demands poured in. He also hired a financial advisor, a sharp young woman named Anya Sharma, who didn't bat an eye when he explained his artistic process involved minimal effort and maximum bewilderment. She just nodded, said, interesting revenue stream. Let's diversify and minimize tax liabilities, and got to work. The media frenzy was relentless. He was the accidental Warhol of Web3, the meme Midas, the crypto jester. He declined all interview requests, preferring to maintain an air of mystique, mostly because he had no idea what to say. His entire artistic philosophy could be summed up as, that sold for how much? The system, as he'd started calling it in his head, remained silent. No booming voice, no instruction manual, just that faint, occasional shimmer, that internal chime when a sale went through, and the undeniable magical fact that his doodles were now more valuable than Picasso's in some circles. It was like having a superpower he hadn't asked for, but wasn't about to give back. His lawyer, a grizzled veteran named Sal, helped him set up a corporation, Absurdist Fortunes Inc. Sal also advised him to move. Kid, your old apartment is going to be swarming with wannabe collectors, groupies, and probably the IRS if you are not careful. You need security and a better address. So, Marcus went apartment hunting. Or rather, penthouse hunting. He found himself in a sleek, glass-walled monstrosity overlooking Central Park. The realtor, a woman named Penelope, who wore sunglasses indoors and spoke in hushed, reverent tones about sky palaces, showed him the private elevator, the 20-foot ceilings, the kitchen equipped with appliances that looked like they belonged on a spaceship. And this, Mr. G, or do you prefer Mr. Brokiev? Penelope trilled. Marcus is fine, he said, still trying to process the fact that the bathroom was larger than his entire old apartment. This, Marcus, is the master suite. Panoramic views, and suite spa, and a walk-in closet, the size of a small boutique. He walked into the closet. It was indeed boutique-sized, and empty, a blank canvas for a new life. He thought of Tiffany meticulously curating her small collection of fast fashion finds. This closet could swallow her entire wardrobe and still have room for a pony. A small, petty part of him savored that thought. I'll take it, he said, the words feeling foreign and exhilarating. The price was eye-watering, something he wouldn't have dared to even dream about a week ago. Now, it was just a number. Anya had already moved a significant chunk of his crypto into more stable, traditional assets, including a checking account with a frankly obscene balance. Signing the lease felt like stepping through a portal. As he left the building, the doorman, a stoic man in a crisp uniform, gave him a curt nod. Welcome to the Azure, sir. Sir. He was sir now. His next stop was a car dealership. Not just any dealership, but one that looked more like an art gallery, where gleaming Lamborghinis, Ferraris, and McLarens sat on polished pedestals like exotic beasts. He'd always driven a beat-up 2008 Honda Civic that smelled faintly of old French fries and regret. A salesman in a tailored suit that probably cost more than Marcus's old monthly rent glided over. Good afternoon, sir. May I assist you? Marcus, dressed in his usual jeans and a faded band t-shirt, probably looked like he'd taken a wrong turn. Yeah, I am, looking for a car. Of course. Any particular model in mind? The salesman asked, his smile unwavering but his eyes doing a quick, practiced appraisal. Marcus pointed to a low-slung, aggressively orange Lamborghini Huracan Evo. That one looks fun. The salesman blinked. An excellent choice, sir. The Vazzaro engine produces a truly visceral experience. He probably expected Marcus to ask about financing or take a brochure. Cool. How much? This particular model, with the optional carbon fiber package and add person on paint, is $327,000. Marcus pulled out the new debit card Anya had procured for him. It was black, metallic, and felt impossibly heavy. All right, can I drive it home today? The salesman's professional composure finally cracked. His jaw went a little slack. Yes, sir. We can certainly arrange that. An hour later, Marcus was roaring down the West Side Highway in an orange missile, the Vazzaro engine screaming behind him. The sheer, unadulterated absurdity of it all made him laugh out loud, a joyous, slightly manic sound that was lost in the wind. He was a meme artist, a crypto joke, and he was driving a Lamborghini he'd paid for with a drawing of a potato. He parked the Lambo in the absurdly secure underground garage of the Azure, the valets practically bowing. He took the private elevator up to his sky palace. The apartment was still mostly empty, echoing with his footsteps. He walked over to the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the glittering expanse of New York City. His phone buzzed. It was Anya. Marcus T. here is a bidding war for your latest piece. Slightly used napkin with coffee stain. It's currently at 50 ETH. Also, the Museum of Modern Art called. They want to discuss acquiring single tier for their permanent digital collection. A napkin? Marcus said, staring at his reflection in the glass. MoMA? Indeed, Anya replied, her voice calm as ever. Oh, and Tiffany Lonsdale has been calling the office. She says it's urgent, and that she knows you personally. Shall I put her through next time? Marcus grinned. Tiffany. Of course. The timing was impeccable. No, Anya, he said, a newfound steel in his voice. Tell Miss Lonsdale I am currently unavailable. Perhaps she can leave a message with my assistant, whom I will hire tomorrow. He hung up, the grin widening. The system, whatever it was, had given him a golden ticket, and he was just starting to figure out how to use it. He needed a new drawing tablet, the best one money can buy, and maybe some actual art supplies, just for kicks. He wondered what a billionaire's doodle of a pigeon would sell for. Probably enough to buy a small island. The world was his oyster, and he was ready to shuck it with a diamond-encrusted NFT. Life in the penthouse took some getting used to, the silence for one. It was a thick, expensive silence, punctuated only by the distant hum of the city, a stark contrast to the symphony of sirens, arguing neighbors, and the ever-present drip from his old apartment. He hired an assistant, a hyper-efficient young man named Leo, who handled his schedule, filtered his calls, and seemed unfazed by requests like, "Leo, find me someone who can explain what a Tao is like. I am 5, and also, where does one buy a gold-plated stapler?" Luxury items accumulated with alarming speed. He bought a Patek Philippe watch, not because he particularly cared about telling time. His phone did that perfectly well, but because the salesman had used the phrase horological masterpiece, and Marcus thought it sounded funny. He bought suits that cost more than his old annual income, though he still preferred his faded t-shirts. His empty closet started to fill with designer labels he could barely pronounce. He bought a ridiculously oversized television, a state-of-the-art sound system, and a refrigerator that talked to him. The art world continued its love affair with his work. He'd taken to doodling on his new top-of-the-line tablet during boring conference calls with Anya and Sal. A squiggly line he called Contemplation of a String sold for 75 ETH. A series of colorful blobs titled Primordial Soup, Probably Needs Salt, fetched 120 ETH. Each sale was accompanied by that faint internal chime, a subtle confirmation from the system that yes, this utter nonsense was still minting him a fortune. Rivals began to emerge. Other artists, clearly trying to replicate his accidental genius's formula, started flooding the NFT marketplaces with deliberately crude drawings. Most of them flopped. There was an artist who called himself Dollar Store Dolly churning out melted clocks drawn in MS Paint, and another, Pixel Picasso, who specialized in cubist interpretations of internet memes. None of them captured the bizarre lightning in a bottle that Marcus, or rather, Brokiev, had. "They're missing the point," a prominent art critic wrote in a think piece for Art Forum. Brokiev's genius lies not in the crudity itself, but in the authentic lack of pretense, the sheer, unadulterated. He is the fool in King Lear, speaking truth through absurdity. Marcus read this while eating cereal straight from the box, wearing silk pajamas. "Authentic lack of pretense? I was just mad Tiffany left me," he mumbled, milk dribbling down his chin. Hackers were another more serious concern. With his wallet addresses now public knowledge, a side effect of NFT transparency, he was a prime target. His first major scare came when he noticed a suspicious transaction attempt. Anya had, thankfully, insisted on multi-signature wallets and cold storage for the bulk of his crypto fortune. The hackers got nothing, but it was a wake-up call. Leo found him a cybersecurity expert, a pale, nocturnal creature named Glitch, who spoke exclusively in acronyms and wore a hoodie, even in July. Glitch fortified his digital defenses to a degree Marcus suspected was probably illegal in several small countries. Collectors were the most entertaining and exhausting. There was Baron von Hessler, an eccentric German aristocrat who only communicated via handwritten letters delivered by courier, and insisted on referring to Marcus's NFTs as Die Kleinen Meisterwerk. He bought Existential Spud, and apparently framed a high-resolution print of it in his ancestral castle. Then there was Crystal K, a pop superstar who commissioned a piece for her new album cover. Marcus drew a sparkly unicorn vomiting a rainbow. Crystal K loved it, declared it iconic, and paid him a sum that could have bought his old apartment building outright. The album went triple platinum. His old life felt like a distant dream. Sometimes late at night, staring out at the city lights, he'd feel a pang of something. Not regret, exactly, but a sort of wistful confusion. Who was Marcus G? Now, was he the okayest artist, or Brokiev, the NFT king? The system had given him wealth beyond imagining, but it hadn't come with an instruction manual for navigating the accompanying identity crisis. One afternoon, Leo buzzed him. "Mr. GT here is a Miss Tiffany Lonsdale in the lobby. She's rather insistent." Marcus paused, a half-eaten gourmet donut in his hand. Tiffany. He hadn't heard from her directly since Anya had stonewalled her calls. Curiosity, and perhaps a tiny lingering shard of his old self, won out. "All right, Leo. Send her up, but stay on comms, and maybe have building security on standby, just in case she tries to repossess a throw pillow." A few minutes later, the private elevator chimed, and Tiffany stepped out. She looked different. Her usual confident, slightly predatory air was replaced with a hesitant, almost nervous energy. Her Chanel bag was still present, but it seemed less like a weapon and more like a shield. "Marcus," she said, her voice softer than he remembered. "Wow, this place is something." She took in the cavernous living room, the panoramic views, the abstract sculpture he'd bought on a whim, because it looked like a giant, confused pretzel. "Tiff," he replied, leaning casually against a ridiculously expensive marble-topped counter. "Long time no see. To what do I owe the pleasure?" She wrung her hands slightly. I heard about your success. It's all over the news. The NFTs. Ah, yes. My groundbreaking commentary on the ephemeral nature of value," he said, quoting the Art Forum critic with a wry smile. "Who knew pigeon poop had such profound artistic merit?" Tiffany winced. "Look, Marcus, I wanted to apologize." This he hadn't expected. "Apologize? For what?" "For recognizing my distinct lack of a 5-year plan. For how I ended things," she said, her gaze dropping to the imported Italian marble floor. "It was cruel, and I was shallow. Chad and I, well, it turns out his 10-year plan mostly involves admiring his own reflection and complaining about the pores. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Trouble in paradise? He called my handbag adorably mid-range, Tiffany said, a flicker of her old fire returning, and he thinks contemporary art is what happens when talent skips a generation. We broke up last week. Marcus almost choked on an imaginary donut. So, let me get this straight. You dumped me because I wasn't rich and ambitious enough. Then you got with Chad, who was rich and ambitious, but also, apparently, a world-class jerk. And now you are here. I made a mistake, Marcus, she said, looking up at him, her eyes pleading. A huge mistake. I see that now. You were always talented. I didn't see it. Or I didn't want to. She gestured vaguely around the opulent space. Clearly, you've done all right for yourself. All right was an understatement of epic proportions. He was currently richer than Chad, Chad's father, and probably Chad's entire ancestral lineage combined, thanks to a system that turned doodles into gold. And what is it you want, Tiffany? He asked, his voice neutral. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe a second chance. We were good together once, weren't we? Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. She was still beautiful, still the woman he'd once loved enough to build IKEA furniture with. But something had shifted, both in her and in him. The system hadn't just changed his bank balance. It had changed his perspective. He remembered the sting of her rejection, the casual cruelty of her departure. He also remembered the relief, the unexpected freedom that had led to the single tear, and everything that followed. He thought of the faint shimmer, the silent chime. The system was a part of him now, an invisible engine driving his bizarre new reality. It had been born from his despair and cynicism, but it had also given him a power he was only beginning to comprehend. We were Tiff, he said, his voice gentle but firm. But once is a long time ago. A lot has changed. I've changed. Her face fell. Oh, I appreciate the apology, he continued. I do, and I am sorry things didn't work out with Chad. But that chapter's closed. She nodded slowly, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. Not a crudely drawn stick figure tear, but a real one. For a moment he felt a pang of the old sympathy. Can I at least get your autograph? She asked, a watery, self-deprecating smile playing on her lips, for old time's sake. Maybe on a napkin? I hear they're quite valuable. Marcus chuckled. The tension broke. Sure, Tiff, for old time's sake. He grabbed a cocktail napkin from the bar, pulled out a Sharpie and scribbled his Bro-Keef signature. He then drew a tiny, smiling potato next to it. Here you go, he said, handing it to her. Don't spend it all in one place. She took it, her smile a little more genuine this time. Thanks, Marcus, for everything, I guess. She turned to leave. Take care of yourself. You too, Tiff. As the elevator doors closed, Marcus let out a long breath. It felt like a final exorcism, the last ghost of his old life, finally laid to rest. He picked up his gourmet donut, took a bite, and looked out at the city. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. It was, he had to admit, a pretty spectacular view. His phone buzzed. A text from Anya. Sotheby's auction for existential spud just closed. Final bid, 250 ETH. Congratulations. Also, a Mr. Silas Blackwood from Blackwood Capital has been trying to reach you. Very insistent. Claims to be a serious collector of disruptive art. Silas Blackwood. The name sounded ominous. Marcus felt a familiar tingle, the subtle thrum of the system. This was new. The system usually only reacted to his actions, his creations. Why was it resonating with a name? Leo, Marcus called out. Do some digging on a Silas Blackwood, Blackwood Capital, and maybe beef up Glitch's retainer. I have a feeling things are about to get even more interesting. The world of high finance and blue chip art collecting was even stranger than the crypto degen scene, Marcus discovered. Silas Blackwood was a name whispered in hushed tones in both. He was a reclusive billionaire, an old money shark with new money appetites, known for his aggressive investment strategies and his even more aggressive art acquisitions. He didn't just collect art. He consumed it, cornered markets, and occasionally, artists. Mr. Blackwood is formidable, Leo reported, looking slightly pale after his research deep dive. He has a reputation for getting what he wants. His collection is legendary and notoriously private. They say he has a vault somewhere under his estate that looks like a dragon's hoard, but with Picassos and Rothkos instead of gold. And he wants my stuff? Marcus asked, sketching a series of bewildered-looking question marks on his tablet. He titled it, Query Swarm. He's apparently fascinated by the Bro-Keef phenomenon, Leo said. He sees it as the ultimate expression of market nihilism, or so his intermediary implied. The intermediary, a severe woman named Miss Graves, who dressed exclusively in black and looked like she could curb stomp a rhino, finally managed to arrange a meeting, not at Blackwood's Dragon's Hoard, unfortunately, but at a hyper-exclusive private club in Midtown that probably required a blood oath and 3 generations of inherited wealth just to get past the coat check. Marcus, wearing one of his new, ridiculously expensive suits, Sal had insisted, look the part, kid, even if the part is Guy who draws farts that sell for millions, felt like an imposter. Miss Graves led him through hushed, wood-paneled rooms to a private dining suite. Silas Blackwood was older than Marcus expected, with piercing gray eyes, a mane of silver hair, and an aura of quiet predatory power. He didn't rise when Marcus entered, merely gestured to the seat opposite him with a manicured hand. "Mr. G," Blackwood said, his voice a low, gravelly purr. "Or do you prefer the nom de guerre, Brokiev?" Fitting in its irony. "Marcus is fine," Marcus said, trying to project a confidence he didn't quite feel. The system was thrumming faintly in the background of his senses, like a Geiger counter near a radioactive source. Blackwood was definitely setting it off. "I've been following your ascent with great interest," Blackwood continued, steepling his fingers. "Your single tier, masterful, a poignant commentary on the inherent absurdity of value, an existential spud, sublime in its banality. I just draw stuff I think is funny," Marcus said honestly. "Or potatoes." Blackwood smiled, a thin, humorless expression. "Precisely. You capture the zeitgeist, Mr. G, the utter, glorious meaninglessness of it all, beautifully packaged and sold for fortunes. You are either a con artist of supreme genius or a conduit for some." His gray eyes bored into Marcus. "I suspect the latter." Marcus felt a chill. Disruptive force? "The market is a living thing, Mr. G. It has moods, fevers, appetites. You seem to have a direct line to its ID. Everything you touch turns to gold, so to speak." Blackwood leaned forward slightly. "I want to understand that. I want to harness it." "Harness it how?" Marcus asked, his hand instinctively going to his pocket where his phone and access to his crypto lay. "I propose a partnership," Blackwood said. "An exclusive arrangement. You create, I curate. I promote. We build an empire on the beautiful crumbling edifice of artistic and financial convention." He named a figure for an initial investment that made Marcus's eyes water, despite his recent desensitization to large numbers. "That's a generous offer, Mr. Blackwood," Marcus said carefully. "But I am not really looking for a boss, or a partner who uses words like edifice." Blackwood's smile didn't falter. "Think of me less as a boss, Mr. G, and more as a patron, a Medici for the digital age. I can open doors for you that you cannot imagine. Galleries, museums, collectors who wouldn't glance twice at an NFT, but who will listen to me." His gaze was intense. "I can make you a legend, not just a crypto flash in the pan, but an artistic immortal." The system's thrumming intensified. It wasn't a warning exactly, more like an alert, a point of interest, as if it recognized something in Blackwood or in his offer. "I'll need some time to think about it," Marcus said, buying himself a moment. The pressure in the room was immense. "Of course," Blackwood purred, "but don't take too long. The zeitgeist is a fickle mistress." He slid a sleek, black business card across the table. "Miss Graves will be in touch." Walking out of the club, Marcus felt like he'd just gone 10 rounds with a very polite, very wealthy boa constrictor. He needed air. He also needed to talk to Anya and Sal. "He wants to own me," Marcus told them later, pacing his penthouse. "Or at least own my output. He called me a conduit for a disruptive force." Saul whistled. "Silas Blackwood. Big fish. Kid. Very big. Very sharp teeth." Anya, ever pragmatic, tapped her pen on her notepad. "Exclusivity deals can be lucrative, Marcus, but they can also be restrictive. What are the terms? What's the out clause? What control do you retain over your intellectual property?" "Details. Details." Marcus waved a hand. "The guy gives me the creeps, but he also gets it. In a weird, evil genius kind of way. He understands the absurdity, and he's right. I am just a crypto flash in the pan right now, if I don't play this smart." The system was quiet again, but the echo of its earlier resonance lingered. It was as if it was saying, "This path, this could lead to more." More what? More money? More influence? Or something else entirely? He spent the next few days mulling it over. He drew a series of increasingly stressed stick figures trying to make decisions. He called it Executive Dysfunction Junction. It sold for a respectable sum, but his heart wasn't really in it. The Blackwood offer loomed. He also started experimenting. If anything he drew sold for a fortune, what were the limits? He tried drawing with his left hand. Sold. He tried drawing with his eyes closed. Sold for even more. Critics called it a bold exploration of subconscious automatism. He scribbled a grocery list on a napkin: milk, eggs, existential dread. More coffee minted it, and it was snapped up by a tech billionaire who framed it in his minimalist kitchen. The system was truly a Midas touch for Doodles. But Midas hadn't ended well, had he? Starved because everything he touched turned to gold. Marcus wasn't starving, quite the opposite. He was developing a dangerous addiction to Michelin-starred takeout, but he felt a growing unease. Was he just a performing monkey for the system, churning out valuable nonsense on demand? One evening, feeling particularly restless, he dug out his old, traditional art supplies canvases, oil paints, brushes, things he hadn't touched since before Tiffany left, since before Brokiev was a thing. He set up an easel by the window, overlooking the glittering cityscape. He didn't have a plan. He just started painting. Hours passed. He lost himself in the smell of the turpentine, the feel of the brush on canvas, the slow build of colors and shapes. He wasn't trying to be profound or satirical. He was just a cityscape, moody and atmospheric, reflecting his own jumbled emotions. When he finally stepped back, exhausted but strangely exhilarated, he looked at the canvas. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a meme. It was a painting. A real painting. And it was, he had to admit, pretty good. Maybe even better than okayest. He had no intention of minting it as an NFT. This felt different. Personal. The next morning, Leo informed him that Miss Graves was on the line, requesting his decision regarding Mr. Blackwood's proposal. Marcus looked at the painting, then at his tablet. He thought of Blackwood's predatory eyes, his talk of empires and artistic immortality. He thought of the system, its silent, powerful hum. Leo, Marcus said, tell Miss Graves I'll meet with Mr. Blackwood, but on my terms, at my place. He paused, and tell her I have a counter-proposal. Blackwood arrived at the azure looking like a panther inspecting a new hunting ground. Miss Graves flanked him, a silent shadow. Leo, bless his efficient heart, offered them artisanal bottled water, which they accepted with regal condescension. Marcus led them into his living area, where his new painting stood on the easel, dramatically lit by the morning sun. Blackwood's eyes, usually fixed on financial data or human vulnerabilities, actually widened slightly as he took in the canvas. He walked closer, inspecting the brushwork, the composition. He was silent for a long moment. This is unexpected, Mr. G, Blackwood finally said, his voice losing some of its predatory purr. You've been holding out on us. T here is actual talent here. Skill. Dare I say soul? Marcus shrugged. I dabble. This is more than dabbling, Blackwood said, turning to face him. This changes things. My offer was for Brokeef, the purveyor of profitable absurdities. This, he gestured to the painting. This is Marcus G, the artist. They're one and the same, Mr. Blackwood, Marcus said. Brokeef pays the bills. Extravagantly. Marcus G. So, your counter-proposal? Blackwood asked, his interest clearly piqued. I am not interested in an exclusive contract for my NFT work, Marcus said. That wellspring of ridiculousness needs to remain untamed. Part of its charm, you know, but he paused for effect. I might be interested in a patron for Marcus G, the actual painter. You want to build an empire? Fine. But it'll be an empire that includes real art, not just cleverly marketed JPEGs. He laid out his terms. Blackwood could have first refusal on any physical artworks he produced, at fair market value. No exclusivity on NFTs. Blackwood would use his considerable influence to get Marcus gallery shows, museum placements for his paintings. In return, Marcus would continue to be Brokeef, generating the crypto millions that Blackwood clearly found so fascinating, and a portion of those profits could be reinvested into promoting Marcus G, serious artist. Blackwood was silent again, his gray eyes calculating. Miss Graves looked like she was about to short-circuit. This was not in her carefully prepared risk assessment models. You are a curious specimen, Mr. G, Blackwood said at last. You have the Midas touch for digital ephemera, yet you aspire to the tangible, the traditional. It's anachronistically charming. He smiled, a genuine, almost admiring smile this time. All right, Marcus G, you have a deal. Let's see if your soul sells as well as your spuds. As they shook hands, Marcus felt the system give a distinct, affirmative chime in his mind. It was a chime of approval, of leveling up. It seemed the system wasn't just about money. It was about growth, about pushing boundaries, even its own. The next few months were a whirlwind. Under Blackwood's formidable patronage, Marcus G had his first solo gallery show. The critics were baffled. Here was Brokeef. Some called it a stunt. Others grudgingly admitted his technical skill. The show sold out. The prices weren't NFT level insane, but they were respectable, and the validation felt different, more real. Meanwhile, Brokeef continued his reign of profitable absurdity. He released Ode to a Lost Sock, probably in the drier dimension. A single pixelated sock, which a consortium of laundry detergent tycoons bought for a staggering sum. He created the existentialist's to-do list. 1. Question everything. 2. Procrastinate. 3. Repeat. It became a viral sensation and sold for enough to fund a philosophy department at a small liberal arts college. He bought a sprawling loft in Soho to use as a dedicated art studio, filling it with canvases, paints, and every art supply imaginable. He hired assistants to help with the grunt work, stretching canvases, mixing paints, handling shipping for the Brokeef merchandise line that Leo had brilliantly conceived, t-shirts, mugs, plushy existential spuds. Life was good. Ridiculously, absurdly good. He was navigating two worlds, the anarchic, high-octane realm of NFTs, and the more staid, traditional art scene, and somehow, it was working. The system continued its quiet hum, its occasional chimes of approval, a silent partner in his increasingly surreal journey. He even started dating again. Not gold diggers. Leo had become exceptionally good at screening those, but interesting women. A neuroscientist who found his system fascinating from a cognitive perspective. An architect who appreciated the lines in his cityscapes. It was nice, normal, even amidst the delightful abnormality of his life. One day, Anya called him with a strange piece of news. Marcus T here is a significant buy order that just went through for one of your earliest, most obscure NFTs. Remember Cryptocrap Pigeon Poop Pixel? Marcus vaguely recalled it. It was the tiny, almost invisible pigeon dropping he'd added to the corner of his single tear NFT. He'd minted it as a separate, one of one piece, more as a joke within a joke. He'd priced it at practically nothing. Yeah, what about it? Someone just paid 500 ETH for it, Anya said. And the buyer? The wallet is new, untraceable, but the transaction originated from a network known for its, shall we say, less than savory users. High-level hackers? Dark web operators. Marcus felt a prickle of unease. 500 ETH for a pixelated bird dropping? That's over $1.5 million. Why? That's what I'd like to know, Anya said. It's not the usual collector behavior. This feels targeted, almost like they're trying to send a message. Or perhaps they think T here is some hidden utility or code within that specific NFT. Glitch, his cybersecurity guru, was even more concerned. This ain't whale games, Marcus. This is black hat territory. They're either flexing or they're probing. Could be they think your early stuff has a backdoor, a key, something related to how your wallet got so fat so fast. The system, for the first time, felt less like a benevolent cheat code and more like a beacon that attracted things, not just collectors and critics, but shadows from the darker corners of the digital world. So what do we do? Marcus asked, a knot forming in his stomach. The comfort of his penthouse, the fun of his Lamborghini, the thrill of the art sales, it all suddenly felt a bit more precarious. We watch, Glitch said, his voice grim. We harden everything. And you, my friend, might want to consider drawing something a little less. Maybe stick to kittens and rainbows? Marcus snorted. Kittens and rainbows that sell for millions? Somehow, I don't think that'll deter them if they're serious. The sale of Pigeon Poop Pixel cast a shadow. Silas Blackwood, when informed, became even more intrigued. Fascinating, he'd mused. Your art now attracts not just the connoisseurs and the fools, but the criminals too. You are truly disrupting all sectors, Marcus. He almost seemed pleased. Marcus was less pleased. He felt a growing sense of being watched, not just by adoring fans or jealous rivals, but by something far more calculating. He started noticing oddities, strange encrypted messages appearing in the comment sections of his NFT listings, sophisticated phishing attempts that Glitch intercepted with disdainful ease, even a drone once hovering a little too close to his penthouse window for comfort. They're definitely after something, Glitch confirmed after tracing the drone back to a shell corporation that vanished into digital smoke. They think your Midas touch isn't just luck or talent. They think it's a hack, a secret, something they can steal or replicate. The system remains silent on this particular threat, offering no guidance, no warnings beyond that initial unease. It was up to Marcus and his team to navigate this new, more dangerous phase. He tried to focus on his painting, finding solace in the tangible mess of oils and canvas. He was preparing for a new gallery show, a series of portraits of anonymous city dwellers, people he'd observe on the streets, their faces telling stories of resilience, loneliness, hope. It was a far cry from existential spud, and the work was deeply personal. One evening, while working late in his Soho studio, the lights flickered and died. The backup generator, usually instantaneous, failed to kick in. The vast loft was plunged into a sudden oppressive darkness, broken only by the distant city glow filtering through the grimy warehouse windows. Leo? Glitch? Marcus called out, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. No response. His phone had no signal. A faint scraping sound came from the direction of the freight elevator. His heart hammered against his ribs. This wasn't a power outage. This was something else. The system, which had been dormant, suddenly flared in his senses, not with a chime, but with a sharp, urgent pulse of warning. Danger. He fumbled in the dark for something, anything to use as a weapon. His hand closed around a heavy palette knife, its edge still caked with dried paint. Not exactly a samurai sword, but better than nothing. The freight elevator creaked open with a groan of tortured metal. Silhouetted against the dim light from the hallway beyond stood three figures, clad in dark, tactical gear, their faces obscured by masks. Mr. Brokieff, a synthesized voice rasped from one of the figures. We've come to discuss a mandatory acquisition. Marcus backed away slowly, a cold dread washing over him. They weren't here for his art. They were here for the secret of his art. They were here for the system. And they looked like they were prepared to dissect him to find it. Sorry, fellas, Marcus said, trying to keep the tremor out of his voice. My acquisitions department is closed for the night, and my secrets are proprietary. He brandished the palette knife, feeling utterly ridiculous and terrified. Plus, I really don't like your interior decorating choices. Too much black. The figures fanned out, moving with a practiced, predatory grace. They weren't art critics. They weren't even hackers in the traditional sense. These were professionals of a different, more physical sort. We can do this the easy way, or the hard way. The hard way involves a lot more explaining to our employers about damaged goods. Marcus knew he couldn't fight them, but he also knew he couldn't let them get their hands on whatever they thought he possessed. The system was part of him. It wasn't a piece of code or a hidden algorithm they could extract. As they advanced, Marcus did the only thing he could think of. He closed his eyes, focused on the urgent thrumming of the system within him, and drew. Not on a tablet, not on a canvas, but in his mind's eye. He pictured the most chaotic, disruptive, and utterly absurd image he could conjure. A stampede of rainbow-colored, laser-eyed squirrels, riding flaming unicycles, all converging on the intruders. He poured all his fear, his desperation, and the system's bizarre power into this mental image. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the studio lights flickered back on, blindingly bright. The emergency alarms, silent until now, shrieked to life with deafening intensity. From outside, the distinct sound of approaching sirens grew louder. The three intruders froze, disoriented by the sudden sensory overload. The synthesized voice cursed. Abort! Abort! Compromised! They turned to flee, but the freight elevator doors slammed shut with a clang, then jammed. The main studio door, a heavy steel fire door, also slammed shut, the maglocks engaging with a decisive thud. Marcus opened his eyes, heart pounding, utterly bewildered. Had he done that? Had the system, somehow, manifested his absurd mental drawing into a real-world disruption? He saw no laser squirrels, thank God, but the effect was undeniable. The intruders were trapped. A voice, calm and familiar, crackled over an unseen speaker system. Gentlemen, this is Glitch. You appear to be experiencing some technical difficulties. Please remain where you are. The NYPD has an ETA of approximately 90 seconds. We wouldn't want you to miss your reception. The three figures looked around wildly, then at Marcus, a new kind of fear in their body language. One of them raised a device on his wrist, probably trying to hack the doors, but then yelped as a small shower of sparks erupted from it. Glitch's voice tutted. Naughty, naughty, my house, my rules. Within minutes, the studio was swarming with heavily armed police officers. The three intruders were cuffed and led away, looking considerably less formidable. Leo rushed in, pale but composed. Marcus, are you all right? Glitch locked everything down the moment he detected the breach and the comms blackout. He said something about, and a very confusing psychic imprint of. Marcus just stared at his palette knife, then at the empty space where the intruders had stood. The system was quiet now, but there was a new resonance to it, a sense of expanded capability. It hadn't just made his doodles valuable. It had, in some inexplicable way, protected him. Silas Blackwood arrived shortly after the police, his usual composure ruffled. Marcus, are you unharmed? My sources indicated a hostile takeover attempt was imminent. He looked around the studio, his eyes sharp. What exactly happened here? Marcus wasn't sure how to explain. I mentally summoned a psychic squirrel stampede that short-circuited their plans. So he just said, they underestimated my security. And my... Blackwood raised a skeptical eyebrow but didn't press. It seems your disruptive force has more dimensions than even I anticipated. This changes the game, Marcus. You are not just an artist. You are a phenomenon with teeth. The incident made Marcus a reluctant celebrity all over again. NFT King thwarts heist with unknown tech, screamed the headlines. No one knew the truth, of course, and Marcus wasn't about to enlighten them. Glitch, with a hacker's glee, spread disinformation about an experimental art-powered security system Marcus had secretly developed, further adding to the Brokeef mystique. The arrested intruders turned out to be high-level corporate mercenaries working for a shadowy competitor of Blackwood's, someone who wanted to understand and weaponize the source of Marcus's Midas touch. They clammed up, of course, their lawyers ensuring they wouldn't spill any useful beans. But the message was clear. Marcus was playing in a much bigger, more dangerous league now. His system wasn't just a fun money-making toy. It was a power, and power attracted those who wanted to control it or destroy it. In the aftermath, Marcus made some changes. He moved his primary residence to a more secure, undisclosed location outside the city. Though he kept the penthouse for appearances and the Soho loft as his working studio, he invested even more heavily in security, both physical and cyber. He also found himself thinking more about the system. What was it? Where did it come from? It had activated when he was at his lowest, fueled by his bitterness and a desire to mock the world. It responded to his creativity, however crude. And now, it seemed to be evolving, reacting to threats, perhaps even manifesting his intentions in subtle, reality-bending ways. He didn't try to replicate the psychic squirrel incident. The thought was frankly terrifying, but he couldn't deny the shift. His connection to the system felt deeper, more intuitive. His art changed too. While Brokeef continued to churn out lucrative absurdities, his latest, a single unpaid intern trapped in a blockchain, was being hailed as a sharp critique of late-stage capitalism and Web3 exploitation. Marcus G., the painter, began exploring more profound themes. His canvases became larger, his subjects more introspective, tinged with a sense of the surreal, the barely glimpsed forces that shaped their lives. Critics noted a new depth, a haunting quality to his work. He was still rich, still living a life of unbelievable luxury. He still drove his orange Lamborghini, though now with bulletproof windows, courtesy of Glitch. But the initial giddiness of sudden wealth had matured into something more complex. A sense of responsibility, perhaps, a cautious curiosity about the full extent of his strange gift. One afternoon he was sketching on his tablet not for an NFT, just for himself. He drew a hand, reaching out from a chaotic jumble of code and symbols, towards a single glowing star. He didn't know what it meant. It was just an image that came to him. As he finished, the faint, translucent pop-up he hadn't seen since the system first activated flickered briefly in his vision. This time, It wasn't blank. It contained a single line of text, elegant and minimalist. Creator level up, Tier 2 unlocked. New potentials emerging, then it vanished. Marcus stared at the spot where it had been, a slow smile spreading across his face. Tier 2? New potentials? All right, system, he murmured, picking up his stylus again. Let's see what else you've got. The world of art finance and shadowy intrigue was still out there, full of rivals, hackers, and collectors, but Marcus G., the okayest artist who became the Brokeef King, was ready for the next level. His journey was far from over. It was just getting more interesting, and a whole lot weirder.